Whilst we welcome back Nicholas Fulkrug to full training with the rest of the West Ham squad, one notable absentee from training this week has been Callum Wilson. During Nuno'S pre-match press conference, he confirmed that the squad are managing one or two player niggles, which were picked up from the game against Newcastle last weekend, but he didn't name any specific names. Now, photographs and videos from Thursday's team training session show just about every player who started on Sunday present at that training session, apart from Callum Wilson. Although it is possible he's on some kind of bespoke recovery program after playing 60 minutes on Sunday and coming on much earlier than anticipated against Leeds the weekend before. Now, none of us really expected Callum Wilson to be any more than a backup striker this season. We didn't expect him to be the key man up front. But with limited options that we have available to us, the recent injury to Nicholas Fulkrug, there's been more minutes expected of Wilson than any of us would have thought. Now, Wilson did exceptionally well against Newcastle, his old club, last weekend, shielding the ball really well, battling for it, getting stuck in, and being a general nuisance to the Newcastle backline. It was a professional, old hand, experienced performance, and he rightly received and deserved the plaudits that he got. Now, if Wilson is unavailable, and I'm not saying 100% that he is, but if he is unavailable for Saturday's game against Burnley, and if this game is coming a little bit too soon for Nicholas Fulkrug to play a part in, then Nuno faces a selection problem up front yet again. But what are the realistic options available to Nuno without Wilson and Fulkrug to call on? Now, before I dive into that, if you're new to the West Ham Boys, or if you've watched the channel before but yet to become a subscriber, there's a QR code that's appeared in the top corner there. All you've got to do after this show is just click on that QR code. It takes you straight to the subscribe button. Subscription is totally free, so please do that. Now, if you don't want to become a subscriber, that's absolutely fine. At the end of the show, if you enjoy the content, please do hit the like button. There's a button below the video for you to click on. And in order to generate more interest in the video, there's also a new hype button. If you click that, it allows other viewers on YouTube to watch the show. Now, after all that, if you're feeling quite generous and you want to become a member of the West Ham Voice, it's again that same QR code. You can do so at $1.99 a month. You do receive extra content, and all money raised through the membership scheme goes directly to Prostate Cancer UK. And I've just sent them a check for £320 recently, which was raised between myself and the members. So thank you for that. Right, so let's get on with it. Nuno does have a number of options to replace Wilson with, and Fulkrug with, for that matter. But which one of them is likely to be the best option? I guess he could call on Callum Marshall. Callum Marshall played for the under-21s the other day, and in that game, he missed a very late penalty, which could have won the game against Wolves. So that's an option. But young Callum Marshall, with the greatest of respect to him, I think is just a little bit too early to be leading the line in Premier League. And then, of course, he could opt for a makeshift striker. And he could go for somebody like Thomas Souček, who came on 60 minutes into the game against Newcastle, and he played in that makeshift striker role. And perhaps he could be used in that same role again against Burnley. Now, Souček has already shown on a number of occasions that he can finish. You know, he's been quite decent in front of goal. And he offered a game-changing impact on from the bench, where he scored our third and decisive goal right at the end of the game. Now, the pros of using Souček include his physicality and his aerial presence, and he can be a direct threat from set pieces. But the downside is the limited link-up play and the ability to hold up play compared with a natural striker. So I don't know if Nuno would opt for that option of having Souček in as a starting striker if both Wilson and Fulkrug are unavailable. Now, the alternative, of course, is an option to play Jared Bowen through the middle. Now, pushing Bowen into a central striker role would mean he's got to have to rebalance the right side of attack. And he could do that with perhaps Luis Guilherme, or he can use Kyle Walker-Peters ahead of Aaron Wan-Bissaka, or the other way round. Now, Bowen, he offers pace. He's good at pressing. He is a forward that runs into channels. He's dangerous on the shoulder of the last defender, and he could stretch the Burnley defence. But then it begs the question, who is best to replace Bowen on the right-hand side? Do we go a little more defensive with Wan-Bissaka and Walker-Peters, or do we risk Guilherme in that role? Look, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, strong defensively, it gets forward quite rapidly. He could help Guilherme. If it's Guilherme in front of him, he could help him immensely. But Guilherme would have to do his fair share of dropping back to help defence when we don't have the ball. Is he disciplined enough for that? Is he experienced enough for that? And then, of course, Kyle Walker-Peters, he offers more progressive runs and crossing, slightly less defensive rigidly, but better at supporting the attack. Now, we've seen Bowen play in a central role before, so we know what he's capable of. But Bowen is less of a natural striker and may struggle with hold-up play and will certainly be less effective in aerial duels. Now, pushing Bowen into the middle also sacrifices a proven wide creator. And we know Bowen is more effective in the area on the right side, not only for his creativity, but also for the defensive elements where, what he brings to the game. Now, I mentioned Luis Guilherme, perhaps on the right side, or to allow Bowen to play up front, or alternatively, Guilherme could be used as a makeshift striker himself, keeping Bowen out on the right-hand side. Now, Guilherme, he's got genuine pace, no doubt about that, and he's good at dribbling, so he can unsettle a compact Burnley backline, and he can exploit their defence. But we need to change our game plan in order to accommodate him. We would have to supply him with quick early chances from wide play and through the midfield and get those balls to him rather quickly, rather than expecting him to be a classic kind of holding a player who can hold the ball up like a natural striker could. Now, Nuno could, of course, go again with a false number 9 with someone like Lucas Paqueta. Paqueta can drop into midfield to help dominate numbers in the middle, but then which would allow players like Bowen and Somerville to get further forward into goal-scoring positions. However, many fans don't like the false number 9, and many fans feel that false number 9 doesn't quite work out that well. We know what Paqueta's like. Again, another creative player like Bowen. He can progress the ball, unlock defenses with his passes, etc. And we'd lose all that if he was played further up front. Now, the sacrifice of a false 9 means also, with someone like Paqueta, a lack of aerial dominance, and again, virtually no hold-up play. Paqueta would risk being outmuscled by Burnley's back line. So what approach is Nuno going to take if he doesn't have Callum Wilson nor Niclas Füllkrug available to him? Well, I think Nuno will likely choose the option that preserves midfield balance whilst giving the team pace and a pressing profile up front. That points to either playing Bowen centrally with either a centrally minded player or a defensive minded player to take his place, someone like Wan-Bissaka or Walker-Peters. Or, as I've said, he could opt for Guilherme on the right and play Bowen, a more experienced player, up front. A Paqueta false 9 with wide runners running in, I don't think will be his option. If the match requires a more physical presence, then Souček as a stopgap striker could be the pragmatic choice. But I kind of see quite potentially what Nuno would do is maybe bring Souček on later in the game, just like he did against Newcastle. Look, whatever option Nuno goes for, it shows yet again the lack of realistic striking options that we have available to us, which must be a priority to get right when the January transfer window opens. Just how much of Wilson and or Fulkrug we'll see between now and January remains to be seen. So let's hope that this coming Saturday, it's not so bad and that Wilson is indeed available. But I've got to be honest with you, I'm not really holding my breath. And I expect to see some kind of alternative up front against Burnley this coming Saturday.